yeah, 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 yeah.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this universe of global pandemic and virtual reality. We are speaking to a brother who has created a wonderful platform for all of us to help navigate this new virtual space or this hyper virtual space that we're in. We are speaking to Ronnell Perry. Hi, Ronnell.
Hello, good to chat with you. I appreciate you bringing me on.
Thank you. So Ronnell Perry is a project manager that builds e-learning products by day and a content curator and serial entrepreneur by evening. His writing is excellent. So recently, Ronnell launched what is called Black, Young, and Working from Home, a platform in social media exploring his life through the lens of being Black in a virtual workplace in the wake of COVID-19 and anti-Black racism. His other ventures include a travel company, which we're going to definitely talk about as well after this COVID, right? And
Yes.
so his other venture includes a travel company that highlights the stories of Black communities in Latin America through sustainable tourism, and a t-shirt company that funds social change around the world. He joins us from his DC home. What up, Ronnell?
Hey, thank you, thank you. I'm so glad to be here. You know what? I literally just got off of a work call, but I also am now on PTO through the end of tomorrow. So, you know, this morning I've been hustling, I've been talking to folks, and now I get to actually do some of that restorative self-care that I really want everybody else to be able to experience because, working from home has been a great opportunity, but it has also been a box. And folks work day never ends because their laptop is always there. And so I'm just happy that I was able to take PTO, and I'm happy that I have the platform to be able to talk about issues that are affecting Black professionals who are working from home.
Yes, this is actually it's a very timely piece. What made you launch Young Black and Working from Home, and what has been the response?
Yeah. So I have several different Instagram accounts, and one of them is my personal account. And I haven't been able to go through barber. I haven't been able to go out and get all pretty. So I've not been taking a lot of selfies, but I have been documenting, my interest in baking and making cookies and cooking different foods and starting a garden on my balcony. And I was like, you know what? This is really starting to become less about me and more about a lifestyle that is coming out of our need to work from home. And I was like, I feel like other people can probably identify with that. So let me start a platform where we can talk about these issues, even outside of just the pretty part. But let's talk about the social issues and the safety issues around a workplace that is, location independent, but the issues of race and discrimination and safety are even more relevant. So I started Young Black and Working from Home for that reason. And it's kind of come out of a place of wanting to show a lifestyle and what kind of fun and freedom you can have working from home to actually responding to a need that is a social issue right now and a quality of life issue for many Black folks that are expected to perform but also have to navigate how do you respond and still live a full life with all of this trauma that's happening every single day.
Right. Let's start right there, actually, is what has been the conversations that you've had in terms of, on one hand, you have to deal with this global pandemic, which situates you in the domestic space. Secondly, then you have to cope with that and whatever that is, right? And whatever your domestic lifestyle is, all right? And then you have this other layer that's going on, and it's now you've got to deal with this global response of the George Floyd killing and these conversations around racism, police brutality, and you being a Black man. So tell me what that's been like.
Yeah, so the response immediately, I created the account less than a week ago. the response has been great, you know. But the thing about it is there have been a lot of people who have messaged me and who have responded and said they identify with what I'm talking about. And the thing about it is, you know, in the workspace, even if we were in a physical office, Black people are expected not to talk about race and these issues because it's political and it's not appropriate for the workspace. But right now, we have no choice but to start to be vocal about it and really contextualize it for what it means for us in navigating who we are now. And so let me just give you an example. Yesterday, the leader of our organization where I work provided space for the Black employees to really tell how these issues are impacting them. So that kind of relieved us of so much burden that we were carrying around because we were Black and we're human and we're facing COVID and we're facing anti-Black violence, but we can't talk about it. So to be able to breathe out and have our issues acknowledged by our white coworkers who do not have to face some of these realities is so refreshing. It's so refreshing.
Right. And you know, in these I've gotten white colleagues. I have white colleagues that have been down like 4 flats prior to, you know, what's going on. But there's been a surge of colleagues, you know, pinning back, how you doing, so on and so forth. It's in some ways a little weird. I appreciate it, but it's weird because there's been 11 million other deaths prior to. But I think it got magnified because a lot of people are quarantined at home and it's just been concentrated in terms of, you know, what's going on. And so I'm still trying to kind of like navigate that. And on your site, you actually have some really good tips that you list. And one of them that I do most effectively is disengage. And don't apologize. I had to tell somebody I'm not working on no goddamn committee right now. Don't email me about any of that. You know what I'm saying? I'm having daily conversations as an aunt to several, you know, nephews coming from South Los Angeles, reliving in a lot of ways the 1992 unrest, and all of the other things that have happened subsequently. You know, you're not gonna hear from me indefinitely. So I really appreciated that.
Let me talk about 2 things. One about white coworkers and their encountering of what this issue means for us. And then we'll talk about disengaging. So one of the things that I really expressed during that meeting where I was able to share, and along with my other Black colleagues to white coworkers about what this means for us, is that the rage that we feel, okay? Like, you know, disappointment is one thing, alienation is one thing, frustration is another thing, but let's take it to the pinnacle of rage, okay? Right. You know, to the point where we feel like destroying property or doing whatever we need to do to make our voices heard is necessary. The rage is not stemming out of one Black man who died. Who, you know what, let's not even be, I like to use active language. It's not stemming out of one Black man who was murdered, okay?
Right.
This is stemming out of an entire history,
right,
of murder, rape, and theft from white people. And white corporations benefiting from free labor from Black folks, and white folks enlisting Black folks in the army and putting us on the front lines, and to be here in the US where we cannot reap the privileges and the benefits of all those sacrifices. Okay, that is, you know, I feel like a lot of white folks that I've encountered are pretty myopic about this specific instance. This is, again, like you said, just one of many, and it is one moment in time in a history of a country where this has been an issue. So, you know, I really, you know, when white folks ask me, I tell them this is not just a one-time thing. This is something that is a result of a history, and we need to start to dismantle all those systems that have benefited from the history of our oppression and the history of our murder. That's point one. About disengaging, I framed that in the sense of, you know, we are hyper-connected. Like before we got on this call, I had to X out of Microsoft Teams. I had to X out of Outlook. Okay, I just put my phone on mute. So I have 3 Instagram accounts. There's Twitter. There's a family group chat. Like, disengaging is necessary because we have to allow ourselves the space to breathe. Like, you know, one thing is being at home physically and I think, you know, more comfortable places for a lot of us, but emotionally, our mind can still be stuck in places that always call on us to respond and react. And that has a toll on our spirit. And so I feel like disengaging really gives your spirit and your mental health an opportunity to breathe, to just be, to not have to worry about responding to somebody who wants to know about your Black experience. You know, like I feel like disengaging also gives us an opportunity to stop being re-traumatized by watching stuff that we already know is happening. So I really feel like that is really key to us being healthy people. Just being people for one, and not necessarily a consumer of content all the time.
And I think also added to that is leading up to this space, or just when these high profile police killings happen against Black bodies, we have to also experience the cycling and the distribution of that killing and that murder over and over and over and over again. And as a media company, you know, I get a lot of these. I actually had to tell one particular person who all they do is send me like this type of stuff. You know, if you continue, I'm going to have to block you. I don't want to see it. Like, I, as a Black person, it does something to us when we consume death from somebody that looks like us. This is not Game of Thrones. This is not an HBO special. This is like real, you know, this is like real world. On top of that, and we know that you, the non-Black folk, are watching it too, as well. So it becomes, you said it, like this trauma porn, you know, on all of these circles of social media. So I really like how you mentioned that and talked about that, and trying to get not even white as well as other non-white folk of color to understand what that does to us, as well. Liking a video or saying, oh my God, Ronnell, I understand. How are you feeling? For about 30 days. It doesn't absolve you of your guilt. Like, this is
Absolutely.
Just as well as I have got to live in this body as a Black person, and I have got to deal with the vestiges of racism, of domestic terror, of internationally when I travel, I am surveillanced and I'm treated like shit. You know what I mean? All these things, this is a lifelong thing. You have to be committed your whole life in dismantling it if you really about it.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think a lot of this information overload is in the name of being informed and news. But the thing is, Black folks, I was telling a very high level leader in my organization, like, I don't have to go to trainings or have community conversations about this, because I live it every day. Okay. Yeah. I am a Black queer man. Microaggressions, racism, hatred has been in my vocabulary, in my practical vocabulary, since I was in 6th grade or before. I don't have to be informed of every single thing that happens to Black folks. I know what happens because it happens to me.
Right. And another thing, because another, in talking to folk that we get, particularly Black, you know, Black people, is the question, and this is a question that has come up before, is that as a white person, what can I do you've gotten that question as well, you know, like, what can I do as a white person? And this conversation that I had just recently was, I am in mourning. I am mentally not well. I should not have to do your work. You figure it out and holla at me and tell me what to do.
What you gonna do? That's exactly it. Like, I just wrote a blog post about that. Like, what can my white coworkers do for me? And I feel like holding space is one piece of that, right? And when you hold space for me, I'm dictating what I want to do with that space. If I want to block you out, let me do that. If I want to grieve, let me do that. If I want to call you to action, let me do that too. Okay. And I feel like some of the things that white folks can do beyond, you know, reading, which is apparently a lot of them like to do about reading about racism, is funding activism. Okay. Money talks. And also putting exactly words to what's happening. You know, I've seen a lot of social media messages from corporations, and I know folks are having these conversations at home with their family. Don't talk about us needing to unite. There's a lot of turmoil. There's a lot of chaos and hurt. No, name it. Name anti-Black violence. Name racism. Name murder. A white woman just asked me this morning, or she said she asked her daughter what could she do, because she's raised colorblind kids, and her daughter was a little bit flippant because, you know, her daughter felt like you can talk to our community about this, and this white woman didn't feel like she could talk to her community about it. I said, no, actually, yes, you can. And that is exactly what they need. They need white people to tell them what's happening and why it's wrong. Like, you know, we can protest all we want, but coming from you and you taking a solid stance and naming and acknowledging it, it's a good first step.
Because there are plenty of white people who have been doing the work. You know what I'm saying? Or, all right, let me kind of take that back. There are a number of white people who have been doing the work that can be tapped into. You know what I'm saying? And this is another thing I want to add as well. And I jokingly said this, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I want to, you know what? And this is the thing. This is the tough thing. Majority of the people who are stewards of the DEI organizations or sectors in their schools and their companies are usually Black folk, people of color, LGBTQ. And so for them to be in that space and articulate issues and needs, I don't want to take that away. But can we all just agree that DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion is trash, it's ass, it's a joke, it's just a token? And why is it that, you know, I've been to quite a few of these shindigs. Why is it that at least 85 to 90%, and I'm being very conservative, are the people who are vying for diversity, equity, inclusion, and the majority is not present? You know, it's like, oh, I did that Martin Luther King thing. I'm great. I'm good. I've done my diversity, equity, inclusion. So I'm like, why do we even do that at this point? And lastly, a fellow, a colleague of mine, I was going to a DEI meeting. And so I said, oh, you know, are you going? She said, I stopped going because why am I doing all the work? Why am I doing all the work? I'm exhausted. And this was 3 or 4 years ago. And so if you people, she was exhausted 4 years ago and here we are today, oh my goodness, what are we? We're like zombified.
Absolutely. I've been talking to leaders about this, leaders of organizations that I'm affiliated with about this. And I said, you know what? The diversity inclusion or CHROs, they don't have to be Black and they don't have to be women. But we do, you know, and a lot of people want to know what can they do? Well, look, we have two opportunities. One is a very personal and day-to-day in your personal sphere of influence opportunity. The other is to dismantle systems. If you really want to be effective, put Black folks in leadership that are not just CHRO and diversity and inclusion managers, okay? That is what you can do. And so when you think about who does diversity and inclusion work, who's looked to, it's usually Black women. If you go on LinkedIn and you just type in diversity and inclusion, Black women thought leaders and folks who have been put into position in America's corporations are going to pop up. And the thing about it is we have to look at this in a cultural and historical context. Black women literally birthed this nation. Mm-hmm. They suckled this nation, okay? The reason why we are so powerful is because Black women allowed white leaders, white families to give their children over while they go do, you know, corporate work, okay? And that still happens. And so Black women have physically been the ones who have carried the burden of this nation. And for us, and to call on them to, again, do the emotional and the people work, that I feel like is doubly violent. And mm-hmm. So we really need to look at dismantling these systems, not through just diversity and inclusion, bobbling heads, but we need to look at putting Black folks across the board in places of leadership.
Mm-hmm. You know, and I often wonder sometimes, like I would really ask myself, do people really understand what shared power is? Because shared power.
No, they don't. And that's why we're in this issue, because see, the people are trying to take back the power, okay? And that's why people don't understand about sharing. They love power. They love their privilege. And the thing about it is, you can say flowery things and put social media out there that, you know, says you're taking a stance. But if you're not really willing to give up power, then you ain't talking about nothing.
And another thing that has been, you know, I've been meditating on is, I said this, it came to my head. White privilege does not mean that you're more free than I am. You're not freer than me, because in white privilege, there is a level of, well, there's multiple layers of what it is. One, in white privilege, you have the option of not having to engage in conversations or be in specific spaces. Like, I've had colleagues like, oh, please don't talk to me about George Floyd. I can't hear it anymore. I can't do it. No, you about this life? You say you are. You need to be about it. You need, because I mean, I can't separate myself from it. But when I mean freedom, like, I think our definition of freedom is very limited in terms of what we feel in the ability to move and to exist in healthy states. America doesn't exist in a healthy state. And right now, as you can see, people can't move about freely, you know, so there are, so privilege and freedom, I think, are two totally different things that we really need to talk about. And I think, you know, people need to be like reassessing, like, is this privilege that you talk about, how much is it worth it? Because it has been very costly for everyone.
Yeah, I agree. And some people don't have an issue with what's happening right now. That's the thing. Because if they do decide that they have an issue, that means they have to give up that which they enjoy.
Right.
And that's power, and that's access, and that's not having to think second, you know, take a second glance at why they weren't hired, or if they're going to get a job, or if they're going to get admitted to a school, or if they should feel safe working at home. For some people to actually challenge and think about in a real pointed way about what's happening, that would make them have to give all that up, you know. And so many people benefit from it and love it, and that's why they want to turn away and they can't hear any more about it.
Yeah, so that is something I'm definitely going to be talking to a lot of people in terms of, you know, privilege is not free. Privilege ain't free. That is just a new kind of like thing I want to think about. But I want to go more into young Black and working from home. What are some, yes. Now, I have to say, for those of you who are listening, I thought it was young Black and what the fuck. I thought it was WTF.
Well, look, sometimes when I get an email, I feel like, what the fuck? So hey, that's right. Absolutely. Some of it is about frustration, working from home and being Black and can't get your point across, so you got people questioning you. Absolutely. That's not incorrect.
Okay, so I have seen countless posts by people who say that they have been disgusted, disappointed, offended by colleagues' social media posts. You know what I'm saying, right? So over the protests, a lot of people sling a lot of opinions. So on one hand, you totally have people who are publicly expressing support, but then you have people who are expressing dismay, you know, disagreement, and all these things about why their people are rebelling, why is there looting, and why is there burning. How are you navigating that? Or how can one navigate that when their colleague has vehemently different and even, you know, racist implications in their responses to what's going on in the world?
Yeah, you always ask me such hard questions. You know, one of the things that I feel like we're equipped with that a lot of white folks are is a truth about history. So for me, just contextualizing that this is not a response to one single instance of violence. This is a response to a historical and continued and consistent and very pervasive throughout society. This is not just one response. This is a response based on the history of violence against us. And so that's where the race comes from. And so part of me, you know, feels like we also don't have to respond to every single person that kind of is that ignorant and expressive with their ignorant opinions. So a part of that, you know, creating space for ourselves and disengaging is to recognize where battles are just to be left at a draw or just to be left to them fight themselves, because at some point they'll realize it. But, you know, we can't spend all of our energy giving history lessons to everybody. But I feel like for the people who really care about and the people who sincerely want to understand we can spend time there. But again, realize the emotional and the emotional burden and the emotional toll is on us, but the work is not up to us. The work is up to white folks to change. Okay. So like, I just feel like recognizing that, and I feel like that can help put a filter on how you pick your battles and what you dedicate your energy to.
So what is it that we can expect from this platform?
Yep. So like I said, it started off as a lifestyle platform, and now it's actually I'm being responsive to the social issues that are happening. So I'm going to be vocal about it. And, there's a deeply personal choice that I had to make when I started to come out with this content is, how do I want people to see me? Because, I've seen more people post on Black people post on LinkedIn about, taking stance and how this has affected them. And, for Black folks, we can't be as free to just talk about everything that's happening to us.
Right.
Because if we do, recruiters are going to say, oh, that could be a problematic Black person. We're seeing, we can have degrees and speak languages and travel and shit like that. But the thing about it is we still have to stay inside this respectable box. With young Black and working from home, I'm saying I'm casting off respectability. I want to be using my voice to bring awareness to people's issues, and specifically to Black people's issues around racism. And that's what I'm giving up. That's what I'm putting on the line, okay? So that's what you can expect of me. Just be at the forefront of that. And also I want to give you all a glimpse to the value that working from home allows us, okay? So there's this rhetoric around butts and seats and being able to see your workers doing work, okay? And what I want to say to the world is that, Black folks, we out here working, we hustling, we trying to keep our jobs in the midst of economic turmoil. You don't have to be distrustful of us, but working from home is allowing me to save money, okay? It is allowing me to take back 3 or 4 hours a day of my life and commute. It is allowing me to nourish my body and my mind in ways that I don't have the opportunity to when I have to go all the way to Virginia to go to an office, okay? Look, let me tell you something. I could go on and on about this. I've saved over $800 in the past 3 months on food, on eating out at lunch, and commuter fare alone. I've been able to start a Roth IRA because I've been saving money, okay? So this is not just about what's happening right here and right now. It's about my quality of life and allowing me to build wealth and to build wellness, okay? So like, it's real, and it's so practical for folks. And I really feel like organizations need to take a second look at their work from home policies and realize that, the value of my workforce is increased because they're in places where they feel safe.
What is your response to people who say that work from home is like letting people into your sacred space?
Well, I don't agree with that. It's all about what you want to show folks on the camera. And I definitely, one of the recommendations that I make is to really segment and partition off your space. You should have a designated workspace where the energy that you put in that space is all about work. And when it's 5 o'clock, you close that computer and you come and get on your couch, you come and go to your Zen room, you go work out, and you have these physical barriers between you and the obligation to work. Like I said, it's so easy to just bring your laptop wherever you go. We've had people on video calls go to the bathroom, like you still need to carve out the space, even though it's probably going to be a lot closer to where you live. But I feel like designate that space, and you can probably really create some mental space between your work and your living.
There is a type of camaraderie that I experience in the virtual workspace because, just like last week, I'm talking to somebody and she's like, wait a minute, she get up, she got a shirt on in her drawers. And I'm like, no, I said, no. You know what I'm saying? She's like, girl, we all got the same thing. We just went on and, talked. So it was like a sisterhood moment, that I was able to experience. And then you told you, the student, when 1 week, I let it all out. I had my wine and I was just like, what to do, y'all? This is not a good week, but we're going to get through this. People were like, oh, everybody, the Chinese students, everybody was just so happy because it just felt like an authentic moment that I, as a professor, could not have on the campus of New York University. But, me being in my home space, I just had to just surrender and be like, this is my oasis. And I just got to be who I am at this moment. And I'm not good and I'm not all right.
Yes, absolutely. Like I was just saying, this is valuable opportunity for us to be freer, like literally let our hair down. Right now is the first time that I've been on call without having my do-rag on. And I unapologetically go into my meetings with a do-rag on. On camera, it just looked like blackness. So they don't really even know how to interpret that. But the thing about it is, there's a conversation about the Black image that is probably really relevant right now, and how we show up and the pressure that we feel, even in a physical workspace, to button up and do all this. Right now, we get to be free and let ourselves breathe. But let me tell you one thing that happened to me recently, and it has to do very much with my phenotype and my Black image as it shows up on somebody's screen. I went to a virtual meeting. It was about 10 colleagues. I have a little avatar that shows up in Microsoft Teams when I come up. So like, not only can you see my live stream, but you can also see a little avatar of my headshot. And I had this headshot that was really stylized. I would even call it like a glamour shot, but it was still safe for work. One of my white colleagues said, "Oh, Ronnell, your headshot is so nice. You look like a movie star." No, you look like a rapper. And she proceeded to do boo, 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 boo. On a call with 10 colleagues. I gagged. From that moment on, I realized, but just because we're virtual doesn't mean we're safe. And just because we're virtual doesn't mean that all racism just dissolves into the ether. Like, that's not what's happening. There's still conversations we need to have, and there's still ignorant people out here that are harming us in a virtual workplace. And we need to do everything we can do to make that safer.
Correct.
So
I appreciate it. Oh,
look, at that moment, all novelty of working from home was gone. Okay, you know, when we first started this early March, we were like, "Oh, we get to be working from home. Oh, let me make." After that, I was like, "This is real."
Working in a workplace, especially in corporate America, or working in specific government organizations, has a certain level of surveillance of the body. When that has been removed and working from home, have you seen a difference in you or how you feel?
A little bit. Like, I go to work like this. Sometimes I go to work with my do-rag on, and I'm just waiting for somebody to say something, though they haven't. But I've had experiences where folks have been on calls and they've had issues with the way people appear. And Black folks, we have a big thing about how we show up in the world physically. A lot of it is about respectability and acquiescing and being accepted, but a lot of it is just how we are. We appreciate our personal physical beauty and how our hair looks and stuff like that. So I feel like that's an extra burden that may be alleviated in some ways, but I still see calls for folks to show up and put their clothes on to make that mental transition to work. I don't believe in that. I believe in showing up at work as you want to. You don't have to turn your camera off if you don't want to. So, putting those boundaries up, because working from home allows us to do that.
So I am assuming that you are in the millennial category. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
What can Generation Xers or even baby boomers you think can take from this platform?
I think they can take from this platform the idea that you can show up as your full self at work. And also that you have a voice and you have a responsibility to make sure that your workplace, whether it be at home or your workplace virtually, is safe for you. So I really want people to feel empowered and to know that there's a community of folks who are going through this and that we can share ideas and collaborate on solutions. And also that, this is an opportunity where I think this is a moment in time when none of us can really afford to be quiet about it. And I think some of the steps that we can take is trying to make change within our organization, just talking to leaders in our organization about what would make you feel more comfortable. What do you think the organization's response should be? Whether that be around a work from home policy or whether it be around how to dismantle institutional racism within your organization. So I do think that there's a difference in approach between the different generations. My generation, we will tweet somebody, we will tweet an organization to death. We will give you a Black Twitter treatment. And then, there's another generation that I don't necessarily understand as well, that's older, like my parents. They probably would not support me going on Twitter or LinkedIn and posting these kind of things, but that's the difference. And I feel like my generation really has an opportunity because we're a little bit more risk takers, and we understand that we have a little bit more control over our lives, and we understand that we don't owe our loyalty or our silence to our employers.
So what would you like for the people who go on the Young Black and Working from Home platform? What type of interactivity you welcome?
Yes, I welcome all interactivity. Comment on my posts. Let me know what strategies you're using. Let me know how you're making space for yourself. Let me know how you're disconnecting from your work. And let me know what kind of conversations you're having with your colleagues in the workplace. So I want them to feel like they can engage around that in community, but also I want to show people that, there's space for you to explore who you really are during this time. And this is really a privilege, I think. And so, I'm going to be showing folks what I'm cooking. I'm going to be showing folks how I'm putting together this home gym over here. I'm going to be showing folks my little container garden on my balcony. And I want to inspire folks to actually take time and opportunity to explore things that bring them joy and to create a better home environment for themselves, and also consequently create a better working experience for them as well.
Labor analysts predict that going forward, we will be doing more things virtually, and more so, or in particular, working from home. If you were the leader of the working from home committee, what are some directives or things that you think should be implemented in order to create healthy, productive work from home atmospheres?
One of the things is I would stop this conditional work from home. My organization, we're only working from home because of COVID-19, and it really, I think, it forced their hands on a decision that they were mulling over for years about, what is our access to work from home? Previously, I only had one day work from home, that was on a Friday. And now I feel like I would say, hey, all HR folks, we're going to implement a permanent work from home policy. We're going to follow behind a lot of these tech companies, because the thing about it is these tech companies are giants in their field, right? And their workforce is so committed that they know that their workforce is committed to the work, and they don't have an issue with letting them work from home. So I would just put out a blanket policy that everybody can work from home if your job allows it. Another thing is I would provide direction on how to manage HR issues, whether that be complaints or resolution to those complaints. How do we work through that in the virtual space? We can no longer walk to HR's office and close the door and write up a complaint. Like, what does that look like in the virtual space? For me to have a safe space with somebody who I know in the organization that I can trust to tell them what happened, and then to track the progress against the resolution. I feel like we also need those tools and mechanisms that are really practical approaches to how we manage this. And I think those two things there, I would get us off to a great start. And the thing about it is, we're creative. Like generations, my generation, we create. We are content creators. We are thought leaders in our own right. And I feel like to crowdsource more ideas to create a more robust working from home stance, I think could come from the people themselves. So I feel like if you start out with the right tools and you start out with the right perspective, you can't go wrong with it.
I would like to thank you for joining me and talking about this brand new platform. When you go on blackwfh.com, not WTF, blackwfh.com, not only can you peruse and read Ronnell's blogs, which are hella funny and engaging and so true, but you can also shop. And he is available for consultation, for speaking. And also, before we go, I mentioned in your intro that you are also, you lead a travel company or a travel initiative. Could you please just tell me about that, so when we start traveling again, we can hook up with you?
Absolutely. Yeah, the travel industry is to a halt right now. So I don't have any trips on the books, but we're going to get back. So what I focus on is really highlighting the stories and communities of African descent in Latin America. So Afro Buenaventura Transformative Travel really brings to the fore destinations in Latin America where Black folks live and thrive. And I just bring those communities to the fore and make sure that we are considering them as tourism destinations. So that is what we do, whether it be Brazil, Colombia, Cuba. Those are all places where I've been and I've held trips, and I'm looking forward to becoming re-engaged in that as soon as the travel environment spruces and comes back to life.
And I will be one of your participants. I'll be ready.
Absolutely, absolutely. But look, in the meantime, the content is not just about my thoughts and my perspectives. It's also about the people who are experiencing this with me. So I definitely encourage folks to use the hashtag BlackWFH when they're talking about their work from home experience.
I thank you so much, Ronnell, and I wish you all the success. Once again, what is the website, sir?
blackwfh.com.
All right, this is Ronnell Perry. I am Kaya Niambi Shivers. This is Arc Republic. This is just another day in Black land.
Hey, thank you so
Hey,
much for having me.
thank you.